Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. Once again, we are here today, and you know what time it is. We have another amazing show lined up for y'all. Man, we're going to go to Ohio and talk to our good friend Brandon Neely. And today's topic is going to be fun. We're going to be talking about income maximization and all about the strategy behind it. So, first and foremost, we're going to learn more about Brandon, his professional career, and what he has in store for our listeners and viewers today. So first and foremost, Brandon, thank you for your time and clearing your schedule on Friday. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing amazing. Glad to be here with you and bring some heat here.
I read your bio. It's very not just impressive, but you spent some years building your portfolio and being a serial entrepreneur. You have a lot that you can share with us with your experience. So kind of start with that. What inspired you to not just be an entrepreneur and kind of be your own boss, but what's your professional background that kind of sparked all this?
Yeah, I am somebody who wants to make a difference in the world. I think sometimes people get into it to make money, which is important, right? But I wanted to make impact, and that was part of why I started my first business. And back up a little bit, I was in the military and I was in the music industry uh, prior, other quote unquote lives. I feel like I had 9 lives so far. And then was in the coffee shop. And the reason I did the coffee shop is because coffee is the second most widely traded commodity in the world. Americans are the number one consumer, yet the poorest countries are often coffee growing countries. So, whenever you hear somebody say somebody needs to do something about that, it's probably you, right? And so we naively went into um, starting a brick and mortar coffee shop, which I honestly wouldn't recommend starting a brick and mortar unless you have a very rich relative to help you. But I did that, and we were able to scale that and sell the business, not without a few arrows in our back or war wounds. And so now I'm just like teaching people what I wish I would have done differently, um, going into the financial world, right? So that's kind of the short and sweet of that. There's so much to it, though.
And let's unpack that a little bit because before we dive into income maximization, when you first got going with coffee
Mhm.
and all those ventures, what was the learning curve like for you? I mean, did you have any mentors or anybody in your family that was also in business that kind of showed you some ropes? Or was this like, hey, we're out in the field and let's just kind of learn as we go?
A little bit of that. We also interned at a coffee shop to learn about that. We would ask at our church, "Hey, who's a business owner? Let's ask them and quote unquote pick their brains," which I hate that term because I'm like that sounds gross. But we were doing that. Ended up meeting some really high profile people who we didn't know were high profile at the time, and got some wisdom from them as we were launching into that business, right? And so now, like, one of them was Perry Marshall. He wrote a book, 80/20 Sales and Marketing. Didn't know he was famous when we met him. We just said, dude, he goes to our church. Let's buy him a beer and ask him questions. So we did. And we learned a lot of things of what not to do, and being teachable, right, along the way, and coachable. At doing an internship, you'd be surprised how many business owners would love free labor, right? So being a person who would say, "Oh, I'll do all this if you teach me what a P&L statement is," they did it. They gave us the School of Hard Knocks without having to go to college to learn business. We learned it from interning.
And that's very powerful because, like to your point, if you offer someone who has been down the road that you're hoping to travel one day, that value of information can sometimes be better than going to school. And people don't always like saying
Hmm.
that, but the truth is the truth. Sometimes you can get some really great wisdom from someone who has years of experience, and it'd be a nice shortcut for you versus trying to get a degree in that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the hard part is people want a shortcut in our world, and the reality is there is no shortcut. There's a lot of work behind any big entrepreneur business owner. They probably had a lot of work, or someone else ahead of them did somehow, right? And so um, making sure we realize that there's a lot beneath the surface in any person's story.
When you look at the opportunities to maximize your pocketbook, maximize your business, and also your impact, with all the experience that you have so far, what are some of the strategies that you notice seem to have a very solid foundation for you?
Yeah, well, one is as I was going down the coffee world, you start asking questions of where's that money coming from and going upstream, both in the poverty mindset and the prosperity, right? And so when it comes to what we do now in the financial world, you start asking, how come banks are the most profitable venture out there? And looking at business owners who need capital, so then they borrow from a bank to get going, and individuals who are, needing, they have credit cards, and the banks are the most profitable business in the world. So I've learned, don't do what the banks tell you to do, do what the banks do, right? You look at even, I don't know, J.C. Penney's, Verizon, any of these stores that they usually have these credit card companies associated with them now because they're in the banking industry just as much as they're in the sales of clothing or other products that they actually do. It's kind of interesting. So learning that we're all in that industry, regardless of if we're a business owner selling widgets or we're in other worlds, coffee, for example.
Once again, listen to I Am Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, Brandon Neely. Go to his website, wealthwisdomfp.com. When we dive into the topic of today, maximization strategies, when you look at how income works, you kind of touched on it, how banks are working, how we can think like a bank, so to speak. When you look at how you can position yourself to not
Mhm.
just win, but to have effective systems, what are some of the things that you've seen be maybe a turnkey system for you as far as strategy?
Yeah, I think first off, and I think it's turnkey is different for each person. So I wrote a book. It's called Five Smooth Stones, and really, in our system, the world is in what we call chaos. It's confusion, haphazard, anxious, overwhelming, and stressful. And most of the time, this is the challenge: is we're looking for those shortcuts. And what we need is to step back and think. And what I kind of call it is we need to be still, right? We need to stop. We need to ask ourselves questions. And in our method we call the still method, it's setting your sights, right? You need to know where the heck you want to go. Not just for me, but for you, right? Set your sights. Yours is going to be different than mine. It might be a turnkey in real estate, right? But even real estate plans or strategies depend on each person's skill sets, right? And income and all that other stuff. So set your sights, track your in and out, inspect your progress, look for 1% adjustments, not home runs all the time, but adjust 1% and live deliberately. It's having that and then circling back through it. That's the shortcut. First, you have to ask yourself, what the heck do I want to do? And oftentimes, I think that people are trying to get this quick cheat code, but in order to go fast, almost like the tortoise and the hare, you have to slow down to know to be able to go faster. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I like what you said about the baseball thing. It makes me think about because it's like philosophy and Babe Ruth one of his
Yeah.
quotes come to mind. You can't win today's games with yesterday's home runs. And I feel people, like you said, they want to find that quote unquote cheat code that is a magic pill that no one else has discovered yet. And I think it's kind of easy to tell nowadays that the magic pill is in fairyland, and we have to actually get to the hard trenches of old fashioned work. So my next
Yeah.
question to you is, how did you discover the best management flow for cash? And also, how does that play a role to maximizing the income?
Yeah, so a couple things is I'm a profit first individual, so profit first certified. It's an amazing book for every business owner should read that, and making sure you pay yourself first. And as business owners go, a lot of times people get into problems with the taxes, right? Because they forgot that they owe, that's not all their money and they spent it, right? And then they're like, oh, I got to make more money because I spent the tax money that I was supposed to save. And so they're behind, right? So Profit First is a cash flow management system, right? I know what my payroll is. I am commission based, right? But I give myself a salary. So then I know I'm going to be fine, regardless of if I make $50,000 a month or 5,000 in a month, right? I'm still going to be good. So building that part of the profit first system, cash flow management system in my business. That really helps me to be able to make smart moves. And then I use a tool called the 80/20 rule, right? And I will 80% of what we do actually doesn't matter, 20% does, right? So if I'm running a lean business, I can double in on the 20% that's working and start building that more and more, right? And so it's measuring your metrics, knowing the cash flow, and then creating systems like the EOS system or things like that that can help me see what's happening. And then what I also think is I use my flow coming in, and I happen to use a strategy called infinite banking to uh, put my money into a life insurance policy that's whole life, properly designed, that I can turn around and use to buy more assets or build more things. So I think again, three dimensionally. I used my policy that I saved for taxes, but also I might use it for taxes. Again, being the bank in this scenario, I bought an office. I'm now the renter of the office and the owner of the condo, right? With the policy. And so I just said a whole lot there, but I've kind of stacked, habit stacking of different systems that then help me, I don't know, grow pretty fast, right? But it starts with doing the simple things, saving to build that, right? It's kind of like you don't just get six pack abs. You got to go to the gym, right? You work out, do your habits, and so people are looking again for the cheat code, but we need to do the healthy habits, and then you stack it and you understand the metrics. Then you're able to leverage and use it.
And I like the gym point because I think that's true. If you don't know what you don't know, then you just don't know. I mean, you can go to
Mm-hmm.
the gym all the time, but sometimes at a point you might need a trainer. You might need someone to give you some sound wisdom of how you can actually exercise, and maybe not just exercise, but how you are deciding to live your lifestyle, how you sleep, how you eat.
Yeah, right.
When it comes to the business world, you as a professional, was
Well,
some.
and I have a question for you here. Like, so why do you think high performing athletes have coaches? Like, aren't they high performing athletes? Like, they don't need a coach, right? I'm like, wait, so they have a coach to help them get better in certain areas. Yet we say in the financial world, well, I don't need a coach. I don't need that or that. Oh, you know what I mean? And I'm like, if a high performing athlete that is amazing still has coaches and guides that help them for their fitness, wouldn't we want the same thing in our business and in our finances and in other areas of our life?
And that's exactly, you read my mind. That's exactly what my next question was going to be is you as a business professional, when were there times where you still had to find either another coach or another book or just something that you can use that was greater than your own mind, because sometimes we can get in a space where we think we know everything.
I think it's all day, every day. Once you think you know, and that's Nelson Nash, once you have arrival syndrome, you're done, right? I've never arrived. I am continuing to grow and learn, and I want to keep leveling up. So I joined masterminds. I'm a part of one myself, where it's winning in all areas of life, not just financially, which I feel like I'm pretty good at, but I want to, like, there's people that have strengths that I don't have, and I have strengths that they don't have. So being a part of a mastermind community, because I want to win in all areas. I don't want to just say, "Hey, I did a great business and I lost my marriage," right? Or I did really good at this, but my son doesn't like me, right? That's not good. And so for me, I'm going to have people around me, a coach on fitness that can help me be accountable. I think those are important. And so um, as you're going into your business, invest in those things. It might be smaller parts, but you keep investing.
Once again, you've been listening to I Am Refocused Radio, talking to our guest today, Brandon Neely. You can go to his website. It is wealthwisdomfp.com. And tying this all together, you also have a show as well. You have Wealth Wisdom Financial Podcast. And when it comes to communication, this tool of podcasting and just dialogue is very helpful. And we know that a lot of people have joined the space. But for you and your show, what kind of separates you from the mass?
Yeah, I think that most of the people are just copying what other people say. Right. And that's what's happening in the financial world. We're just, dollar cost averaging, do this, do that. And I'm like, how's that actually working out for most people? Like, seriously, we need to actually challenge this quote unquote conventional wisdom and say, is there something else that I'm missing? And so for us, we're about bringing wisdom, timeless wisdom, and saying, could what we think we know, could it not be so, right? Could there be things that we need to question ourselves about? And so our podcast, we talk a lot about history too, to be able to say maybe there's something we could have learned from the Great Depression, Great Recession, or other times, because oftentimes we think we're these fancy unicorns that has never happened before. I'm like, it probably has. And so learning from that and then being able to say, hey, we're just trying to show you what we've learned. And I love what I do with infinite banking and profit first. But building a good foundation, that's our podcast, is foundational thinking. Like, learn how to think, use that. That's probably what your podcast is on, is building people who are thinking. And do that, listen to ours or somebody's, but also don't just say, oh, yeah, Brandon knows everything. Question what I say too, right? And see if that makes sense for you.
Those are listening right now and watching us online, when you speak directly to the business owner who be listening to this or viewing this, despite where they might be in their business life, whether they just started or they've been there
Mhm.
since 40 years plus, what has been Brandon's North Star as far as what has helped you guide you throughout your professional career personally? And also, how have you been able to sustain your
Yeah.
foundation?
Yeah. I ask that a lot, right? And one of the things I say to every business owner, or even if you've been around this, is know that that you're called to it. Because as you know, probably running a podcast, sometimes you're like, what the heck? This is crazy. And you know that you're called to it. And if you know that when crap hits the fan, you're able to go back into the ring, right? Because you know that you're called, right? Now, it doesn't mean you don't maybe pivot or change. You might say, I'm going to do this for 5 years and give everything 110%, right? 150, right? So know that you know. That's number one. Have a team around you that care about you, not just what you produce. So coaches, guides, people that can give and feed into you. That's why I'm part of a mastermind, right? So have that team around you that care about you, and then know your numbers, both financially, metrics. I know how many podcasts we have, YouTubes, those kind of things, but knowing your metrics, and that includes profit, to be able to know if we're doing it right. Right. Now, again, it's a game, but if you keep those three things of know that you're called to it, have a team, and know your numbers, you will win.
One thing I'll share with this, just because you mentioned podcast world, and also I put my 2 cents in, but just for our viewers and listeners, just being able to check the mile markers, where we started and where we are today, is like we hear all the time. It's probably been a heavy theme for 2024 is self-awareness. Know where you
Mhm.
are in order for you
Yep.
to know where you're going. Like you said earlier in the show, kind of know the end game. Have your sights on display so that way you kind of are striving where you need to be. So my comment is when you're pushing to that next level, there's some patterns and signs that show you that you're getting closer. Because usually when storms come, it's
Yeah.
testing your foundation. It's testing your
Right.
core.
Yeah.
It's testing how bad do you want it, but also are you ready and prepared to go to the next level? Because just because you go there doesn't mean it's going to get easier. It just means the accountability is going to be much heavier, and the weight of success is going to crush you if you don't have a proper foundation laid.
Yeah, I was thinking about this just the other day, right? So our church is doing they want to grow 10 times what they're doing, that 10x kind of rule. There's the book called 10x is easier than 2x or something like that. Um, yeah, I'm listening to the book right now, and I always mess up the title. Um, but just thinking about as I want to grow in my impact, right, and all of those areas, I want to 10x what the heck we're doing, not just personally and financially, but the more people I have on staff, that's more impact that I have to impact families that work for me, not just the people that I'm impacting that are buyers, right? But those areas, and so it's my duty to grow me to be able to make a bigger impact in the world. Now, this is a really being honest, right? So I've been struggling with this. I'm like, man, I don't know. I was not a good kid growing up as far as communication goes. And so just settling with this a little bit, I'm like, oh, I'm confident that I could get on stage. My wife is a better speaker than I am. And so I'm always like, hey, you should do that. But I've come to the realization, even just recently, saying if I want to be in 10 years, not just where people are reaching out to me, I need to be confident in what I'm saying. And but also being empathetic, right, in those parts, and humble, but humble and confident. And so that's something that I want to grow in is being confident and saying, no, actually, I do know what the heck I'm talking about. And so as you guys grow, look at 10 years from now, who are you then, and walk towards that person.
Once again, be listening to Refocus Radio, talking to our guest today, Brandon Neely. Go to his website, wealthwisdomfp.com. As we come to a close to this episode, when people understand that there's great minds out there, there's coaches, there's people, there's influence, there's books, there's a ton of resources at your fingertips if you just go after it. But like I've been told many times with other guests, and I'm getting a theme from you today, is until you apply it, it's
Hmm.
actually just information. So with your professional experience, my last question will be for the professionals out there. How does applying something continuously versus once every now and then, how has that made a difference with you in your professional life?
Man, I mean, I was thinking about this even in our coffee shop. Like we've generated some of the amount of revenue that we generate for sales is just showing up, right? And sometimes I'm like, dude, I don't want to. I'd rather like, stay at home, right? Or chill, right? But it's showing up the discipline, and often now, there's a lot against us, right? But you will know, and I bet you even in the podcasting world, it's going to be the people that continue to show up that are going to continue, they're going to dominate. Now, as far as podcast goes, people are, oh, I'm a podcaster. How many shows do you do? Oh, 8, and then I stopped, right? Um, there's so many people that get in love with the idea of starting a business, right? There's a lot of entrepreneurs out there, but there's very few legit entrepreneurs and business owners out there, right? There's not that many. They love the title, but they don't like the work that it has. And it's not just sitting on a beach with your laptop. That's a bunch of crap. But it's about working your ass off, but also building the disciplines to not have to work your ass off if you don't want to.
Once again, been talking to our special guest today, Brandon Neely. Go to his website, wealthwisdomfp.com. Like always, want to say to you, Brandon, thank you for your time.
Thank you. I'm excited for the time with you as well.